The Calgary real estate market has been changing all year. And what is happening now? Well, let's take a look at some numbers, what's going on, because you might be in a position where you are planning on buying or selling in the next couple months and you want to know what's happening. So let's jump in and take a look at the numbers. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be walking through some of the Calgary stats. We're going to talk a little bit about Airdrie, Cochrane, Okotoks, even some rural properties, just so you get some ideas about numbers and what's happening. But all in all, the market is still pretty decently strong. So let's take a look at this. So the first thing is month over month prices in Calgary. And as you can see on the screen, the benchmark price up here is just kind of hovering. It hasn't dropped. I mean, median and average prices are going to fluctuate a lot more, as you can clearly see. But the benchmark price is, for the most part, staying fairly strong in Calgary. Now, if we look at the sales versus new listings, as you can see, the red is new listings and blue is sales. Put it this way. If we were in a market where things were falling apart and the world was ending, like all the articles that you read, this red line right here would not be dropping. We would have to have a ton more of new inventory and just basic inventory sitting on the market in order for us to see prices dropping like crazy. Now, if you have a home or you bought a home and you're looking at numbers going, oh, it's way less than what I paid in the spring, it probably is. The market swung so far, right? If you look at this, the market swung so far in one direction, and now we're just figuring it out. If we would have kept going in that direction, we'd be in real big trouble. One of the things that happened over the last 2 years, we've kind of got used to unknowns, and we kind of got used to like being disrupted, right? You started working from home, and all of a sudden you're like, this will be great. I can do it in my pajamas. But the problem is when you were doing it in your pajamas, your computer was always sitting there. It was kind of like a realtor. You don't know when your day is gonna end. And so that kind of happened, and we didn't have any ebbs and flows like we normally do. So Calgary, normally this time of year, if we were to draw a whole bunch of lines on here where that happened, I'm not going to, those aren't the real lines. But if we were to do the lines on this chart, you would see how there's ebbs and flows. And many, many, many years. I mean, since 2004-05 when we started, a lot of times right around Stampede starting up until after August long, the market really slowed down. So the fact that we're seeing a pause right now or a little bit of a rest in what you're seeing in the stats, that is completely okay. This is not a market like Toronto or Vancouver where they've been overheated for so long and now they're going, holy crap, what is happening? And the problem is they're actually the ones that are coming here, which is keeping our market in a different place than what they are experiencing. So this is what you can see very clearly with this. If you watched last month's video on the market, you would have seen that we were right around there, the green dot. And so we were coming out of a seller's market and into that balance market. The reality is we're just entering into that balance market. We're not entering into a buyer's market. You would have to start seeing, let me undo this. Wait a second. There we go. You would have to see this line be doing that. This area up here is a buyer's market. And I don't think we're going to see that. What I think is going to happen is we're probably going to come in here and back down into a seller's market or stay somewhere in this balance market over the coming months and probably into the end of this year. And so it's just a different market here than what we're seeing other places, despite the interest rate increases, despite all of the things that you're seeing in the news and all that fun stuff. So this one here is talking about the month over month prices, because we all know that year over year can really be skewed, and you'll see that in some of the stats I'm going to show you. But the month over month, I'm actually going to zoom in so you guys can see this better. There we go. So you can see right here, this is the first time since, what is that one there? Since about August last year, and this line here. So May, June, July, August last year, the benchmark price actually did drop a little bit. And this is the first time since then that the benchmark price is also dropping month to month. And so this is okay. Again, I'm not overly concerned about this because we're walking into the summer and there's the stampede. Let's go! kids are out of school. So a lot of this stuff is happening and it's slowing the market down. People are living life. Might be one of the first summers where some of you have taken holidays, right? Maybe you didn't take holidays the last 2 years. So that's okay if this happens. And what's interesting about this is the number of listings per month. So again, if we zoom in on this green line is right now, and the yellow line was last year. And then if you have this green and these other two blue lines, I believe they are about 2018 and 2013. The number of listings is still like it's low, like we're still dropping. And last year we had more listings on the market than we do this year. But this year, the number of sales is almost on par with where we were last year. And you can see that right there, okay? So this is just some interesting stats that we've pulled, that we've looked at. So if you search up Calgary Real Estate Market, Chamberlain Group, or go to our website, chamberlaingroup.ca/Calgary Real Estate Market with dashes in the middle, it'll all show up. You'll come to this page. But you guys have seen this many times before. And right now, 202.8% of all homes that were listed have sold in the last 3 months. So the last 3 months, and again, this is going backwards 3 months, the market really has changed in the last month. So these numbers are still skewed. So that's why we can't go back that far. But we are, and this is what they are. Still 200% of what has listed did sell. So double. The city of Calgary is currently sitting at 1.48 months of inventory. Again, this is the 90-day rolling number. And I'm going to show you something really interesting right after this. With our average number of inventory sitting around $4,500 or $4,500 homes on the market, and 9,200 homes have sold over the last 90 days. And so as you can see on the map, months of inventory, there is still a ton of green here. I'll zoom this out a little bit so you can see more. There we go. So tons of green sitting in the city here, and that is all seller's market. If you take that out, there we go. The areas right now in the city that are sitting more in that balanced market, so in between 2.5 to 4 months of inventory, this is them. So any from Montgomery, Spruce Cliff, Bankview, Meadowlark, Pump Hill, Beltline, all that kind of stuff. And if you start looking at areas that are in a buyer's market, this is areas like Upper Mount Royal, St. Andrews, Shaganappi. So these types of areas that are in a buyer's market, let me unclick that and show you this. So right there, like Upper Mount Royal, the average sale price last month was $2.03 million. So that higher end, like really high end type of product is sitting in a buyer's market right now. Whereas majority of the city, like all of it, almost all of it, is still in a seller's market when we look at the 90-day number. And interestingly enough, so we've started tracking daily stats of what's happening in the market. And this chart here, this is actually showing you what has happened over the last 7 days. So absorption rate, or months of inventory, we're actually sitting at 1.7 and 2 months for the last 2 weeks on average. So the market is slowing down. When we see this 1.4 number here, that's more of a 90-day rolling number. When we look at this number here, 1.6 to 1.7 is more of about a 30-day type number. So what has happened over the last 30 days. And this 1.7 to 2 is more what's happened over the last 7 days. So it's kind of interesting. So we can see that the trend is happening where the market is slowing. We're slowly moving into a balanced market. We're not even close to the buyer's market yet. And when you start looking at other areas like rural, Airdrie, that kind of stuff. So here, so for Airdrie, and I know all of you don't live in Calgary, so that's why I want to show you some of the stats. So right now, one of the things I'm noticing in Airdrie is the average list price over the last, 6 weeks, has dropped from $612 to $585. So stay tuned over the next couple of weeks here. We're going to shoot another video about talking about Airdrie, because Airdrie is really shifting underneath their feet, and sellers are just trying to keep up with what's happening. Because what this says to me, as you go down that list, when sellers are listing their houses, they're realizing that the values aren't there like it was back in February. Days on market, there we go, are around that. about a month on the market, where their months of inventory are still really low. So about 0.9 for the 30-day and about 1 to 0.95 for the 7-day. So they are still, a lot of inventory is still moving. But when you look at the average sold price for Airdrie, it's much more around that 445 number instead of what everything's listing at, or the average what's listing at is at 600. So there's a lot of higher end stuff listing and not necessarily selling in Airdrie. Now, if you go to Cochrane, the average list price is about 580 down to 570 over the last couple of weeks. Their average sold price is about 509 to 510. And they're sitting at about 1 month to about 1.2, 1.4 months. So again, you see a slight trend of Cochrane also slowing down. Chestermere, very similar, 1.5, 1.6, and then 1.6 to 2.1. So this last yesterday, what's the date today? Today is the 5th when we're shooting this. And as of today, when we pulled the stats this morning, the inventory, months of inventory for Chestermere skyrocketed at 2.4 months. So things could be changing there pretty quickly. When we look at Okotoks, 1.2, 1.4 is a 7-day, and 0.8 and 0.9 is the 30-day. So that's really interesting. So that means things are really going to start slowing down in Okotoks. And what really surprised me here was this average weekly price. So the average price of homes that are being listed out there are over $700,000 still, where the sold price, here we go, is $577. So there's a big gap, a really big gap in Okotoks still. So hopefully you guys are finding this interesting. This is good information. The final one is the rural. So average price for rural properties is right now is about 2.3 million being listed, and sold is 1.6. So there's again, a lot of stuff is being listed high, and the stuff that's selling is a lot less than that average list price. But they're sitting at 4 months of inventory for 30 days and about 5 to 6 months of inventory for 7-day number. So that's kind of some of the quick stats. So I hope this is interesting. Hope this is helpful. So the last thing that I want to show you is, if you look on any of our social channels, the beginning of this month, you would have seen these stats, these images. And I just want to share some of these with you because there is some interesting information in here. So Calgary, all condos and houses, the benchmark price that we pulled from CREB was about $544,000. That's the whole city, with 2,800 sales. Now, the year-over-year number of sales has actually dropped by 2.5%. And so when you look at the total number of 2,800 sales that have happened year over year, and you're seeing a 2.5% drop, when you look month over month, like I showed you before, which is right over here, right? That we're not necessarily seeing, I mean, this is a benchmark price, but the number of sales, that's listings, here we go, number of sales per month, like that's from this month, from there, those 2 months, that's not a 2.5%. We still just have, there's a lot of sales happening, but there's just more sales than what's keeping up with the inventory, right? And so when we look at these numbers on the screen here, the year over year can kind of get skewed because you're going to see a lot of big increases in prices and big decreases in terms of year over year numbers from numbers of sales, okay? And same with new listings, new inventory. We're down 21% compared to inventory last year, and we're down 1.7% in new listings from last year, okay? Detached houses, the 647.5 is the benchmark price that we got from CREB, which is again up 15.5% compared to last year. That is a big jump for Calgary. 1,400 sales, which is 18% less than last year. Like, do you see what I'm talking about? There are some drastic, like 15 and 18%. You got like a 30 whatever percent spread in between there when you're looking at these numbers. So it's kind of confusing. Semi-detached, again, you got a 12% increase, 13% increase from last year of the benchmark selling price, but an 8% drop in sales compared to last year. Row townhouses. So this is where it changes a little bit. Townhouses and apartments, if you remember from last year, they were a lot slower. Now, has that market picked up? A little bit. Townhouses a lot more than condos, especially downtown, like inner city type condos. So 363 is the average or the benchmark selling price right now for townhouses, and it's a 16% increase from last year. And there's also a 35% increase from last year for the number of sales that actually happen. So townhouses have actually really picked up and taken off because as prices increased, what happens? A buyer either needs to adjust their price and increase their budgets, or they got to look at something different. So what do they look at? They drop down to a townhouse, or they go to a smaller house. They look at different types of product because the budget isn't increasing as quick as the market has been, right? So that's what happened with that. And apartment condos, well, for those of you from Toronto and Vancouver who are watching, Calgary's different. We don't have the same type of inner city condo living market that you would expect from those areas. And so you'd think that the condo market's just going to boom and take off and go crazy. Well, it's kind of a mindset thing here. It's different. To be honest, as a local Calgarian born and raised, the only way I'm going to ever buy a condo and live in it is if I can do it for my family. And for having a family of 4 living downtown, why would I ever do that when I can afford a house that's only 10 minutes from downtown? And so it's just not the same, and the amenities are not quite there. But if you looked at downtown Calgary 10 years ago, the amenities and the restaurants and everything else, it is like far different, way different than what it used to be. So there is opportunity to live downtown, but it's a very different type of market than what others could be expecting that are coming from other cities. All that said, we're still seeing a 31% increase year over year in the number of sales and about a 9% increase in their selling price. But apartment condos, unfortunately, probably aren't going to take off like we thought they could have this year. And so it's going to be a little bit different. Now, what I want you to watch next is this video. If you're looking at what are the hottest communities in the city of Calgary right now for the summer and the spring, head over there, watch this video, and I'll see you on that video.